So many years ago, I came across this story that really changed my perspective. It's called The More Excellent Way. And I want to share with you a talk, or at least a part of a talk that has this story in it. And it really highlights to me the importance of slowing things down, being slow to anger, being slow to assuming things, and taking a deeper look at things and trying to understand what's really going on and act as if I was doing what God would want me to do. You know, the famous WWJD, this story is one of the premium versions of it. So let's go ahead and take a look. Let's listen to it, and then we can reflect on it.
This is a good lesson for each of us. After his father became ill, Vern Crowley took responsibility for running the family wrecking yard, although he was only 15 years of age. Some customers occasionally took unfair advantage of the young man, and parts were disappearing from the lot overnight. Vern was angry and vowed to catch someone and make an example of him. Vengeance would be his. Just after his father had started to recover from his illness, Vern was making his rounds of the yard one night at closing time. It was nearly dark. In the distant corner of the property, he caught sight of someone carrying a large piece of machinery toward the back fence. He ran like a champion athlete and caught the young thief. His first thought was to take out his frustrations with his fists and then drag the boy to the front office and call the police. His heart was full of anger and vengeance. He had caught his thief, and he intended to get his just dues. Out of nowhere, Vern's father came along, put his hand and in his weakness on his son's shoulder and said, "I see you're a bit upset, Vern. May I handle this?" He then walked over to the young would-be thief and put his arm around his shoulder and looked him in the eye for a moment and said, "Son, tell me, why are you doing this? Why were you trying to steal that transmission?" Then Mr. Crowley started walking toward the office with his arm around the boy, asking questions about the young man's car problems, and as they walked. But by the time they had arrived at the office, the father said, "Well, I think your clutch is gone, and that's causing your problem." In the meantime, Vern was fuming. Who cares about his clutch, he thought. Let's call the police and get this over with. But his father just kept talking. Vern, get him a clutch, get him a throw-out bearing too, and get him a pressure plate. That would take care of it. The father handed all of the parts to the young man who had attempted robbery and said, "Take these. And here's the transmission too. You don't have to steal, young man. Just ask for it. There's a way out of every problem. People are willing to help." Brother Vern Crowley said he learned an everlasting lesson in love that day. The young man came back to the lot often. Voluntarily, month by month, he paid for all the parts Vic Crowley had given him, including the transmission. And during these visits, he asked Vern why his dad was the way he was and why he did what he did. Vern told him something of their Latter-day Saint beliefs and how much his father loved the Lord and loved people. Eventually, the would-be thief was baptized, and Vern later said, "It's hard now to describe the feelings I had, what I went through in that experience. I too was young. I had caught my crook. I was going to extract the utmost penalty, but my father taught me a different way. A different way, a better way, a higher way, a more excellent way. Oh, how the world could benefit from such a magnificent lesson." As Moroni declares, wherefore whoso believeth in God might with surety hope for a better world. In the gift of his Son hath God prepared a more excellent way.
After having watched that, what kind of feelings does that bring up for you? How do we respond more Christ-like? How do we choose to see things a little bit differently? Some of that's maturity. Some of that's becoming aware. You don't know what you don't know. As you develop an awareness perspective of, I'm not going to assume I know what someone else is going through. I'm not going to assume I understand the whole picture. Taking a little bit of time to seek understanding. Now, it's a Dale Carnegie principle. Seek first to understand before seeking to be understood. That's truly a process of letting more information in than you're trying to put into a system of ideas. Or in this case, we have a hierarchy. What's the best possible way of doing this? The best possible way is looking at it from like a godly view. Like, how would God see a situation? He sees in this situation young men who are developing, they're struggling in their own ways, a family that's been struggling, a family health crisis. This is during a Great Depression era where there's not a lot of resources. People are getting more desperate. There's an understanding that people are trying to be good, but when you don't have your basic needs met, that's when people make choices that they usually wouldn't make. Or they might slip on their morals, or they might steal something. So this father in the scenario, he understands that there's a lot going on in the world. And he doesn't want to compromise his values or his way of living because of those things that are happening in the world. And he reminds the young man, you can ask for support. You don't have to take. People are generally good. People generally want to help you in whatever way they are able to. But we have to be willing to let our pride go and ask for help at times. And also, sometimes we need to be willing to give that help even when we don't feel like it. As the other young man was saying, he wanted his pound of flesh. He was ready to take his vengeance. And maybe that was also a product of his own family's desperation, his dad's poor health, him trying to make money in the scrapyard. You know, the scrapyard could also be an analogy for life. We're all trying to make our way in the scrapyard with what we have, the tools we have. And yet, even with those limited tools, sometimes people take from us and we feel depleted or overlooked or underappreciated. So we have to be willing to take that back to our higher power and ask, how can I understand what's happening here? So for me, I have to start looking at a deeper way of meaning in my life. How do I understand? If I have something I'm really struggling with, or my life is really hard, and there's a situation that's just repeating itself, and I'm asking God, hey, help me remove this, and I'm not getting it removed. Well, I can take that one or two ways. I can say, one, God doesn't think about me or care about me, and I might become more bitter, or I might become a victim of my life. Or I can say, what more can I learn from this? Why is this experience repeating so much? Is there something I'm supposed to learn before I can move on or move through to the next part of my life? So when you take that perspective, the more excellent way is taking our stuff, whatever that is, to our higher power, instead of asking God to remove our things or to stop our things. We may want to ask, what can I learn from this? How can I understand? Then we take this back to the story. The father figure in this situation, he's a father, but he's also like a grandfather figure. He slows it down. He carefully understands what the youth is going through. He offers all that he has and more to support him with love. That's the more excellent way. And over time, the young man pays off his debts. He volunteers, he pays back his debts. And the other young man, his son, learns a valuable lesson from his own father and a way of being. The way of being. Now, we have our ways of being now. Is our way of being good? Is it better? Or could it be best? Can it be a more excellent way? The hope is we look up and we strive to increase our way of being, that we may be like the children of God amongst men and women and children, that we may lift each other up and enhance communities and make the world a better place. That is the idea. That's the ideal. Let's call it the ideal. Now, to get from here to there, that's a process. It's a building of step by step, precept upon precept, brick by brick to make it stick. But it's an active choice of taking actions to slow it down, be an observer, run it through a filter, just like if you have not perfectly clean water and you need to clean it, you run it through a filter and then it becomes drinkable. Well, if your life is not potable and you're not able to drink of the life that you have because it's just there's things that aren't kind of going very well, you have to apply filters. And so when you step back and you say, when I'm overly angry, or if I'm quick to judge, or I'm quick to assume things, life is ugly. It's muddy, it's murky, and my relationships, they don't go very well. In fact, I'm losing relationships. So we apply a filter, and this filter is, what would Jesus do? How would he have me respond? How would he have me act? How could I be like him in this circumstance? So you're slowing it down, and now you're running it through that filter when you respond to people or situations. And the responses that are coming back are more genuine. They're more thoughtful. They're more loving. And regardless of the world events around you, you live in a pocket of protection, of godly love and godly light. And in that pocket of protection, it doesn't mean you're going to be fully protected from all the physical elements of the world or other people's free agency to do harm, but it will increase your ability to see spiritually. And when you see spiritually, the things of the world mean less. And consequently, you tend to receive more good in your life. Now, the flip side of that is if you're quick to anger and you're quick to be aggressive and you're quick to fight, there's always going to be someone bigger, faster, stronger than you and more violent. The world is full of sad stories. The prisons are full of people who can't control their anger. And every day someone gets hurt that doesn't need to be hurt. If they would learn how to temper their anger or temper their response system or simply respond with love. So how can you apply this to your life today? What's 1% difference you could make in any relationship you have, yourself or others, as you apply these filters, the more excellent way filter of viewing everything? I believe it's made a massive difference in my life, but it's been slow as I've worked on my willingness to slow it down and to not respond so quickly. And it will continue to make a difference in my life as I put it in focus. The things you put in focus, they magnify and they grow. The things that you don't put in focus, well, they kind of sit stagnant or they fade away. So choose what you want to focus on. Thank you for this talk. Thank you for the inspiration. I know it's been meaningful to me. I hope it's meaningful to you. If you found it meaningful, please share with someone. Messages of hope and faith, they need to be shared. And that's how they grow. Have a wonderful day.